I think you and I share something very special.
The dinner conversation just leaked, and it's absolutely explosive. Kody Brown, sitting across from Robyn at what should have been an intimate meal, just admitted on camera that his only motivation for adding another wife would be sex and how attractive she is, not spiritual growth. Not family expansion, not the plural marriage principles he's preached for decades. Just sex and looks from a 57-year-old man who's already abandoned 3 wives and 13 children. The raw footage shows Kody leaning across the table, using his signature manipulation tactics while Robyn nervously laughs and calls him a pig. But here's what makes this conversation so shocking. This isn't some private moment caught on a hot mic. This is a calculated scene where both of them knew the cameras were rolling, yet Kody chose to reveal exactly who he really is underneath all that carefully constructed public image. For years, Kody has been telling red carpet interviewers that he's perfectly content with just Robyn.
But if it's not duplicatable, it could put us at risk. And there is something
you gotta think about that.
Come on, there's something wonderful here, right here.
He's claimed that women have approached him wanting him to repent first, downplaying any serious interest in plural marriage. He's painted himself as the satisfied monogamist who finally found his soulmate after the messy divorces from Christine, Janelle, and Mary. But this dinner conversation exposes that narrative as complete fiction. What we're seeing is a man in crisis, bored with his current situation and desperately trying to recapture his youth through the only currency he understands, sexual conquest and trophy wives. And Robyn, despite calling him a pig, is playing right along with the manipulation, asking for guarantees about bringing another woman into their already toxic dynamic. The timing of this revelation couldn't be more telling. Just when Sister Wives fans thought they understood the Brown family aftermath, Kody pulls back the curtain on his true motivations. This isn't about love, family, or faith. This is about a middle-aged man's sexual appetite and his need for constant validation from attractive women.
Well, yeah, there is.
Why wouldn't we put that at risk?
The question every viewer should be asking is simple. How did we get here? And what does this mean for the woman sitting across from him, nervously laughing while her husband essentially tells her she's not enough anymore? Fast forward through years of Kody's public declarations about monogamous bliss, and here we are watching him actively pursue the very thing he claimed he no longer wanted. The contradiction is staggering. This man spent entire seasons telling viewers he was done with plural marriage, that his relationship with Robyn was so special and unique that he couldn't imagine needing anyone else. He painted himself as the reformed polygamist who'd learned that quality trumped quantity. But the new season storyline reveals something completely different. Behind the scenes, Kody has been entertaining women online, actively communicating through emails and websites, essentially shopping for wife number 5, while publicly playing the devoted husband. The cognitive dissonance would be laughable if it weren't so calculating. Picture this dinner scene for a moment. After years of telling America he's satisfied with one wife, Kody sits across from Robyn, the woman he supposedly chose above all others, and casually brings up adding another woman to their marriage. Not because he's had some spiritual revelation about plural marriage, not because he feels called to expand their family, but because in his own words, he's concerned about whether or not having one wife would be enough for him.
Yeah, you're right.
For anything other than
A guarantee. And that's the only reason. And it's not possible.
Why would we put that at risk? Anything other than in my brain, there's something I want maybe more than you do.
This is where Kody's manipulation tactics become crystal clear. He's created a psychological trap for Robyn, where she has to prove she's enough, while simultaneously entertaining the possibility that she isn't. He's making her complicit in her own replacement by framing it as a conversation about their relationship sustainability rather than his wandering eye. The setup is particularly cruel because Robyn has spent 15 years believing she won the ultimate prize. She was the 4th wife who became the only wife. She outlasted Christine's rebellion, Janelle's independence, and Mary's emotional distance. She played the game better than anyone, securing her position as the favorite, the chosen one, the wife worth keeping. But now, sitting at this dinner table, she's discovering that even being the winner in Kody's game doesn't guarantee security. The goalposts keep moving, and the man across from her is already looking toward his next conquest, while asking her to help him find it. Kody Brown has turned manipulation into an art form, and this dinner conversation is a masterclass in emotional abuse disguised as intimate dialogue. Watch how he layers his psychological traps. First, he tells Robyn they have something wonderful here, right here, while simultaneously questioning whether one wife will be enough for him. He's creating cognitive dissonance where she's simultaneously special and insufficient, chosen and replaceable. The gaslighting technique is textbook. He reminds her of their unique connection, making her feel valued, then immediately follows with doubt about their relationship's completeness. When she agrees they have something special, he responds with, "Why would we put that at risk?" But here's the manipulation. He's the one suggesting they put it at risk by adding another woman. He's creating the threat while positioning himself as the protector of what they have. Then comes the really insidious part. After making her feel secure about their bond, he drops the bomb. "There's something I want, maybe more than you do." When pressed, he admits he's talking about sex, essentially telling his wife of 15 years that she's not meeting his sexual needs and he's considering outside options. The message is clear: if you can't keep up with what I want, I'll find someone who can. This is the same doublespeak pattern he used with Christine, Janelle, and Mary. He would tell each wife she was special while making her compete for his attention. He'd create problems, then position himself as the solution. He'd manufacture insecurity, then offer conditional love based on performance. Every woman who's ever dealt with a manipulative partner will recognize these tactics instantly. Robyn's responses reveal she's deeply conditioned to this treatment. When he says he's thought about leaving her, she doesn't express outrage or demand better treatment. Instead, she apologizes and asks him to accept her as a monogamist. She's been trained to take responsibility for his wandering attention and to negotiate for basic commitment that should be freely given. The really disturbing element is how Kody frames his sexual demands. He's not talking about intimacy or connection. He's talking about physical satisfaction and visual appeal. At 57, he's reducing potential relationships to their most shallow components, while expecting his current wife to facilitate his search for younger, more attractive options. This isn't about plural marriage theology or family expansion. This is about a middle-aged man's ego and libido being prioritized over everyone else's emotional well-being. Then the conversation takes an even darker turn, and Kody drops all pretense of spiritual motivation or family values. When Robyn tries to deflect the sexual topic, he doubles down with brutal honesty. "I'm not kidding. My primary motivation at this stage in my life would be just how good-looking she is." This isn't a slip of the tongue or a moment of poor judgment. This is a calculated revelation about his true priorities. Let's break down what just happened here. A 57-year-old man, sitting across from his wife of 15 years, just told her that if he adds another woman to their marriage, it will be purely for sexual gratification and physical attraction. He's not talking about compatibility, shared values, or even basic human connection. He's shopping for a sex object, and he wants Robyn's permission to do it. The audacity is breathtaking. This is the same man who spent decades preaching about celestial marriage, spiritual unions, and the sacred nature of plural marriage relationships. Now he's reduced the entire concept to his personal satisfaction and visual preferences. He's essentially telling Robyn that their special connection isn't special enough to keep him satisfied, and he needs a younger, more attractive supplement. When Robyn calls him out for being a pig, his response is even more revealing. "I know, and I don't care. I'm a guy." He's not embarrassed. He's not apologetic. He's proud of his crudeness and using his gender as justification for treating women like interchangeable objects designed for his pleasure. This is toxic masculinity in its rawest form, the belief that men's sexual desires trump everyone else's dignity and emotional well-being. Think about the psychological warfare happening in this moment. Kody has just told his wife that she's inadequate sexually, that he needs someone more attractive, and that he doesn't care how offensive this sounds. He's systematically destroying her sense of security while demanding her cooperation in finding her replacement. This isn't a conversation between equal partners. This is a power play designed to keep Robyn scrambling to prove her worth. The most disturbing aspect is how casually he delivers these verbal daggers. There's no acknowledgement of how devastating this must be for a woman who gave up everything to be with him. No consideration for how publicly humiliating these admissions are. No recognition that he's essentially telling America that his wife isn't enough woman for him anymore. He's treating her like a business partner in his next acquisition rather than the woman he supposedly chose above all others. Here's what makes this entire conversation even more absurd. Kody Brown is 57 years old, acting like he's some virile 20-something with uncontrollable sexual needs. Despite Google's occasional confusion about his birth year, Kody was born in January 1968, making him a man approaching senior citizenship who's still playing the "I can't help myself, I'm just a guy" card. Most women who've navigated life for 5 decades understand something crucial about men this age: the desperate midlife scramble to prove they're still desirable, still powerful, still the catch they imagine themselves to be. Kody is exhibiting classic symptoms of a man who cannot accept the natural aging process and is willing to blow up his entire life to chase the illusion of his younger self. Think about the mathematics here. After 3 wives left him and he abandoned 13 children, Kody genuinely believes he's such an irresistible prize that attractive younger women are lining up for the privilege of becoming his 5th wife. The delusion is staggering. This is a man with a receding hairline. He tries to hide with increasingly creative styling, a track record of failed marriages, and a public reputation for emotional abuse and abandonment. Yet he sits across from his current wife discussing his sexual requirements like he's conducting a job interview. The age factor reveals something darker about Kody's pattern. With wives, he has a history of losing interest in women as they approach or enter menopause. When wives can no longer fulfill his fantasy of perpetual youth and unlimited availability, he starts looking elsewhere. Robyn was 30 when she joined the family, young, energetic, and willing to compete for his attention. 15 years later, she's 45, dealing with the natural changes that come with raising children and managing a household. Suddenly, Kody is bored and shopping for a replacement. What's particularly pathetic is his transparent attempt to frame this as some uncontrollable biological need. At 57, most men have learned to find satisfaction in deeper connections, shared experiences, and genuine partnership. But Kody is stuck in emotional adolescence, convinced that his sexual appetite justifies treating women as disposable objects designed for his gratification. The really tragic element is how this behavior accelerates with age. Instead of growing wiser and more appreciative of what he has, Kody becomes more demanding and less satisfied. Each passing year makes him more desperate to prove his desirability, more willing to hurt the people closest to him in pursuit of validation from strangers. He's not aging gracefully, he's aging like a cautionary tale about men who refuse to develop beyond their most primitive instincts. Robyn's responses in this conversation reveal something deeply troubling about her role in this toxic dynamic. When Kody makes his crude admission about wanting sex and attractiveness, she doesn't walk away, she doesn't express genuine outrage. Instead, she nervously laughs and calls him a pig with what sounds almost like affection. This isn't shock or disgust, this is a woman who's become dangerously comfortable with being treated as expendable. Watch her body language and verbal responses throughout this dinner scene. When Kody tells her he's fantasized about leaving her, she doesn't demand better treatment or question his commitment. She apologizes and asks if he'll accept her as a monogamist, essentially begging for basic fidelity that should be a given in any healthy relationship. She's been conditioned to take responsibility for his wandering attention and to negotiate for scraps of devotion. But here's where Robyn's complicity becomes more calculating. Notice how she tries to redirect him when his language becomes too explicit, saying you don't understand how you're coming across. This isn't genuine concern for their relationship, this is image management. She's worried about how this looks on camera, not about the devastating impact of his words on their marriage. She's become his public relations manager, trying to soften his rough edges for television, while enabling his behavior in private. The children factor makes her complicity even more disturbing. Robyn has elementary and middle school-aged kids who will eventually see their mother on national television, laughing while their stepfather talks about needing another woman for sexual satisfaction. She's allowing her children to witness a masterclass in how men can treat women as interchangeable objects and how women can smile and accommodate this treatment. Remember Robyn's own admission that she's never been sure if Kody could be satisfied with one woman? She's essentially saying she's always known he might need other options, yet she chose to stay and build a life with a man she doesn't trust to remain faithful. This isn't love. This is a business arrangement where she's willing to endure public humiliation for financial security and social status. The saddest part is how Robyn seems to believe she can manage this situation through negotiation and image control. She asks for guarantees about adding another wife, as if there are safe ways to bring another woman into a relationship where the husband is already announcing his dissatisfaction with his current wife. She's trying to logic her way through an inherently illogical and hurtful situation, proving she's lost touch with her own worth and dignity. What we're witnessing at this dinner table isn't new behavior, it's the same devastating pattern Kody has perfected over decades of marriage. The women who escaped this dynamic, Christine, Janelle, and Mary, could probably predict every word coming out of his mouth because they've heard these exact manipulation tactics before. The only difference is that now Robyn is the target instead of the beneficiary. Christine wrote extensively about Kody's obsession with Robyn's attractiveness when she first joined the family. She described how all the wives suddenly felt they had to compete with Robyn's looks, how Kody would openly praise her appearance while making subtle digs about everyone else's aging bodies. The trophy wife dynamic was established from day one, with Kody treating Robyn like his prize acquisition while the other wives became the consolation prizes he had to tolerate. But here's the brutal truth about being Kody's trophy wife. There's always an expiration date. Janelle experienced this when Kody lost interest in her practical, no-nonsense approach to life. Mary discovered it when their emotional intimacy died and he found her needs inconvenient. Christine lived it when she refused to keep pretending their marriage was working and demanded better treatment. Each woman learned that Kody's version of love is entirely conditional on their ability to feed his ego and meet his constantly shifting demands. The pattern is sickeningly predictable. First, he love bombs the new target, making her feel like the most special woman in the world. Then he uses that special status to create competition among his wives, pitting them against each other for his attention. As the favored wife ages or begins asserting her own needs, he starts withdrawing affection and creating doubt about their connection. Finally, he either discards them entirely or begins shopping for their replacement, while making them complicit in the process. What makes this pattern particularly cruel is how Kody rewrites history to justify his behavior. He's already begun telling people that he was never truly attracted to his previous wives, that their marriages were mistakes, that he stayed out of duty rather than desire. Watch how he'll eventually do the same thing to Robyn, claiming he was never really satisfied with her, that she trapped him somehow, that his current pursuit of other women is actually a return to his authentic self. The Sister Wives community has been watching this cycle play out for years, and many viewers can recognize the signs before the wives themselves do. The subtle criticisms, the wandering attention, the sudden interest in spirituality or growth that conveniently requires looking outside the marriage for fulfillment. It's textbook emotional abuse disguised as religious devotion, and Robyn is just the latest victim to believe she can be the exception to Kody's pattern of abandonment. Robyn is discovering what every woman before her learned too late in Kody's world. There's no such thing as permanent status. She spent 15 years believing she had achieved the ultimate victory by outlasting the other wives and becoming his sole focus. She was the young, attractive, devoted partner who gave him everything he claimed to want. But now she's facing the harsh reality that even winning Kody's game doesn't guarantee long-term security. The trophy wife cycle is brutally predictable. When Robyn joined the family at 30, she was everything Kody craved, 11 years younger than him, willing to compete for his attention, and desperate enough to make him her entire world. She played the game perfectly, positioning herself as the understanding wife, while the others struggled with jealousy and resentment. She got her reward when the other marriages imploded, and she became the only wife standing. But here's what Robyn didn't understand about her victory. It was always temporary. Kody doesn't want a wife. He wants a constant stream of validation from women who see him as their ultimate prize. Once a woman settles into the security of being chosen, once she stops competing and starts expecting basic respect and fidelity, she becomes less interesting to him. The chase is over, and Kody lives for the chase. Now at 45, Robyn is experiencing what Christine, Janelle, and Mary lived through before her. She's watching her husband's attention wander, hearing him openly discuss her inadequacies, and being asked to facilitate her own replacement. The woman who once felt superior to the other wives for keeping Kody is learning that nobody keeps Kody. He just moves on when someone stops feeding his ego the way he demands. The age factor is particularly cruel in this cycle. Robyn was the young wife when she joined, but 15 years and several children later, she's no longer the fresh-faced newcomer who hung on his every word. She's tired from managing household responsibilities, less available for his constant need for attention, and starting to show the natural effects of aging and motherhood. In Kody's twisted value system, these are flaws rather than the natural progression of life and partnership. What's most devastating is how Robyn is now being asked to participate in selecting her own replacement. Kody wants her approval for adding a younger, more attractive wife, essentially asking her to help him upgrade to a newer model. The woman who once felt victorious for being chosen above the others is now being demoted to recruitment officer for her husband's next obsession. The cycle continues, and Robyn has moved from prize to stepping stone in Kody's never-ending quest for validation through conquest. This dinner conversation is giving viewers an unprecedented look into how Kody Brown actually operates when he thinks nobody important is watching. Yes, the cameras are rolling, but this is clearly a man who believes his audience will either excuse his behavior or find it entertaining rather than disturbing. What we're seeing is the real Kody, the one his children and former wives have described in private moments. Notice how comfortable he is with his crudeness. When Robyn tries to soften his language by suggesting he doesn't understand how he sounds, his response is chilling. "I know and I don't care, I'm a guy." This isn't accidental insensitivity. This is calculated disregard for how his words impact the woman sitting across from him. He knows exactly how devastating his admissions are, and he simply doesn't care about the emotional damage he's causing. The children have previously mentioned Robyn making comments about saving certain conversations for the cameras or controlling the family narrative for television. Yet here she is, laughing nervously while her husband publicly humiliates her and announces his dissatisfaction with their marriage. Either she's lost control of the image management she once prided herself on, or she's decided that any storyline is better than no storyline when it comes to keeping those reality TV paychecks coming. What's particularly revealing is how normalized this dynamic has become between them. This isn't a one-time conversation. This is clearly an ongoing discussion about Kody's wandering attention and Robyn's attempts to manage it. She's asking for guarantees about adding another wife like she's negotiating a business contract rather than discussing the sacred bonds of marriage. They've both reduced their relationship to a transactional arrangement where emotional intimacy has been replaced by strategic planning. The timing of these revelations is also telling. Kody spent months on red carpets, telling entertainment reporters that he was perfectly happy with monogamy, that he wasn't seriously pursuing other women, that his relationship with Robyn was everything he needed. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, he was having these explicit conversations about sexual dissatisfaction and actively looking for wife number 5. The public Kody and the private Kody are completely different people, and this dinner scene proves which version is authentic. Perhaps most disturbing is how this conversation will impact their children, who are old enough to understand what their parents are discussing on national television. They'll see their mother laughing while their father talks about needing other women for sexual satisfaction. They'll watch their stepfather reduce marriage to physical attraction and sexual performance. This is the legacy Kody and Robyn are creating, teaching the next generation that love is conditional, commitment is negotiable, and women exist primarily for male satisfaction. The sister wives community is witnessing something unprecedented, the complete dismantling of any pretense that Kody Brown ever understood love, commitment, or basic human decency. For years, viewers watched him manipulate and abandon 3 wives while positioning himself as the misunderstood patriarch who just wanted to build a loving plural family. This dinner conversation has shattered that illusion entirely, revealing a man whose primary motivation has always been sexual conquest and ego validation. The reaction across social media platforms has been swift and brutal. Women who followed this family for over a decade are expressing everything from outrage to vindication. The comment sections are filled with supporters of Christine, Janelle, and Mary saying they finally understand why these women had to escape. Others are questioning how Robyn can continue defending or enabling a man who treats her with such obvious contempt on national television. What's particularly striking is how this revelation recontextualizes everything viewers thought they knew about the Brown family dynamics. Suddenly, Christine's accusations of favoritism make perfect sense. Robyn wasn't the beloved wife, she was just the newest trophy. Janelle's emotional distance becomes understandable when you realize she was married to a man who saw her as inadequate compared to his current obsession. Mary's desperate attempts to reconnect take on new meaning when viewed through the lens of competing with Kody's constantly shifting standards for female worth. The broader implications for plural marriage representation are devastating. For years, the Browns positioned themselves as examples of how polygamy could work in modern society: loving, consensual, spiritually motivated family building. This dinner conversation exposes that narrative as complete fiction. What viewers are seeing instead is a masterclass in how religious doctrine can be twisted to justify male sexual privilege and female subjugation. The questions this raises about Robyn's future are urgent and uncomfortable. How long can a woman maintain her dignity while being publicly humiliated by her husband? How many more conversations about her inadequacies will she endure before reaching her breaking point? Will she follow the path of Christine, Janelle, and Mary by eventually recognizing that no amount of compliance or accommodation will ever satisfy Kody's appetite for conquest and control? Perhaps most importantly, this dinner conversation has provided every woman watching with a crystal clear example of what emotional abuse looks like when it's dressed up as honest communication. Kody's manipulation tactics, the love bombing followed by devaluation, the creation of insecurity disguised as intimacy, the sexual coercion framed as male nature are textbook patterns that domestic violence advocates recognize immediately. The national audience is getting an education in recognizing and rejecting these toxic dynamics, potentially saving other women from similar relationships. The Sister Wives saga has become more than entertainment. It's become a cautionary tale about what happens when women sacrifice their worth for the illusion of being chosen by men who are fundamentally incapable of genuine love or commitment. Do you think Robyn will finally recognize what the other wives learned before her? That being Kody's favorite is just another form of being his victim? And which legal move from Christine's playbook do you think would serve Robyn best if she ever decides to reclaim her dignity? Make sure to tap like, hit subscribe, and keep those notifications on because honestly, after watching Kody reduce 15 years of marriage to his sexual requirements, something tells me the next round of Sister Wives revelations will be even more explosive than this dinner disaster.